Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for that lovely, warm welcome. It is really very, very nice to be here. Not only just on this day where we're celebrating some tremendous women and the work that you are doing to build your businesses, but also I see in a city that was earlier this week, voted the most enterprising in Britain. So yes, well done, Birmingham. Birmingham won the 2016 Enterprise Britain Award, so that's quite tremendous in itself. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I want to talk to you today a little bit about what I did as an entrepreneur and how I found that journey to be for myself, because I've gone on to do other things in the last few years. As mentioned, I wasn't always an entrepreneur. You just don't suddenly start one day fresh out of school with that, or at least I certainly didn't. And one of the first things I did, which I think really did work well for me, was I focused very much on building some foundation skills. I worked as a teenager on the school leaver program, actually, at Pricewaterhouse, and studied part-time at university. And building those financial skills has helped me every single day of my business life. So whatever skills you have, whether it's in marketing or in finance, engineering, product design, whatever it might be, it certainly is hugely helpful, and it was to me, to start with some real business skills. I was headhunted from Pricewaterhouse to join my first startup, which was launching the first GSM mobile phone network in New Zealand, which later became Vodafone. So that was my first taste of being a startup, actually starting a mobile phone network. It was a rather well-funded startup. We had about 300 million. So it's not your normal startup, but it certainly got me interested in the idea of building businesses. I relocated to Britain, and here I carried on my corporate career here in Britain and started doing an MBA at London Business School. Again, just building some more skills that would help me in my business career. It was while doing my master's degree that an opportunity did emerge in the mobile phone sector, and that was the launch of pay-as-you-go or prepay handsets. So it's going back a wee while now. It's about 15 years ago since prepay was launched. Before then, of course, the only way that you could get your hands on a mobile handset was enter into a long contract. So prepay changed everything. And it changed it because very specifically in the first year, 10 million prepay handsets were sold. Now remember, I come from a country of just 4.5 million people. So for me, the idea of 10 million of anything being sold was quite staggering. And I thought to myself, there's money to be made here. So I thought I might have a go at trying to get involved in the marketplace. Well, there was a definite opportunity. Unfortunately, the only way that you could recharge these prepay handsets in the first year or two was to buy a scratch card, a very analog little card with a silver panel that you had to scratch out to reveal a code. And it was horrendous. And I felt that that process needed to be digitized. And so I started a company that runs the software and built all the software, runs all the software in between all the mobile network operators and all the retailers, making sure that top-ups now happen instantly. So when I was looking at this business opportunity, which I did start with 2 co-founders. There was 3 of us that started it. There were 3 things, I think, that I really, really thought of before I left that nice, gilded corporate career, the nice fast track I was on. I thought to myself, first of all, can we do this? Do we actually have the skills in the 3 of us, or access to the skills with other people that we could bring into this company? Can we actually do this? Do we feel that we can get our arms around it? Do we understand what needs to be done? And I thought, yes, we can do it. The next thing I thought is, are the rewards worth it? Is it a big enough market? Are the margins good enough? Is the underlying economic or business model sufficient that I can see that I can definitely make money out of it, and the reward therefore becomes sufficient to offset all the risk that you take when you start up a company? And then the third thing I thought of is, what's the downside? If it all goes horribly wrong, how will it affect me? Well, I thought it'll affect my reputation, it'll affect my ego, probably. I was investing all of my life savings, so I would certainly lose money. But I thought to myself, if the worst happens and it all goes wrong, I'll actually have learned so much on the journey anyway, just in the very act of taking those first steps and building this business. And I felt quite comfortable with the skills that I already had, that I knew I'd be able to go back into the corporate world and continue my career there. So I thought, well, really, there's not that many downsides. Probably the ego would have been dented the most, but everything else I could patch up and make good again. So I kind of think, if you can do it, if the rewards genuinely are worth it, and if you can emotionally and mentally cope with the downsides if they do come along, then just do it. What happened next was interesting. We took that decision, of course, to start. And the momentum that built was phenomenal. The very fact of taking that first step, of resigning from my job, of buying that first laptop, putting money on the table, as it were, ringing people up to get meetings, to start to talk about our product and our solution, all of a sudden the momentum builds. It's very difficult to start businesses or even grow or build businesses without action. Enterprise and entrepreneurship requires action. So we started to build our software and build our technology, and we started to win some contracts. We started to win contracts with the likes of Vodafone and Orange and some large retailers out there, which was quite exciting. We did have competitors. We weren't the only software company doing this, so it was quite a competitive environment that we worked in. But don't think that it was all plain sailing. We certainly didn't go from 0 to 450 million in a nice linear line. And in fact, in the first couple of years, it was very, very, very tough. This was before things like Tech City and people really understanding digital businesses and understanding technology. The dot-com bubble had burst, and that put everybody off the idea of tech for a while. So it was quite tricky. And in those first years, we continued to invest money in building our technology, which is shorthand for losing a lot of money. So we needed some more money. We had a little bit of money from a couple of angel investors, and we'd put all of our life savings in, and we needed some more. So I went round and pitched to a lot of venture capitalists, and I got offered £500,000 by a firm of VCs, which was tremendous. Over the next couple of months, we worked with them on the due diligence and giving them all of the extra information that they needed to make sure that they understood what our business was about. And then I was ready to sign the paperwork and get the money, which was pretty handy because the previous week I couldn't pay payroll. And so I'd had to go to my personal account and get some cash out, not that there was much left, actually it was off my credit card, and put it into the business account in order to get through payroll. So we really were scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of our cash reserves. But that was all right. This VC deal was coming through, so I went to sign the papers, and I walked into the room the night before. My lawyer had signed off all the final clauses that we'd been negotiating on, and I went to sign the paperwork, and I walked in, and the guy said, "Great, we're all ready to go. The money's sitting in our account, ready to be sent to yours. Let's sit down and sign these contracts." "There's just one thing," they said. "You know how a couple of months ago, as we were negotiating, that we agreed that we would take a stake in your business based on a value of your business. Well, today, we think that that value should be half in order for you to get the money. So we're just going to change this figure in the contract. We'll get double the amount of shares because we think your value of your business is halved." And I said, "On what basis are you halving the value of my business? We've won more contracts, we've made more progress, things are going to plan." And he said, "I'm making this change in valuation because you really, really need the money. And if you don't take my money, you'll go bust." He was 100% correct. He was absolutely correct. I had no other options, nowhere else to go, nothing else in the pipeline, and no money. So I did the only thing that I could do. I stood up and I told him where he could put his money. And I left the room with dignity intact. And I walked out of the office and across the road, and I sat in a scungy little coffee shop. And I may momentarily have felt the tears rising before I reached for my phone, and I rang everybody I knew, personal friends, professional contacts, who had ever expressed any interest in my business, and I asked them to help me. And within 2 weeks, I'd raised £250,000 from this collective of people, and we were okay. We were saved. Any deal is not done until it's signed, and that's what I learned that day. Only sign a deal, only sign a contract if you can trust somebody. Of course, I couldn't take his money, and you wouldn't have taken his money either, because if someone betrays your trust like that on the way into a deal, how are they going to treat you on the way through? So we carried on. We got our money. We won more business, won more contracts, but there was one pesky network operator who refused to give us a contract. They thought we were too small, they wanted to work with much, much larger companies, and they didn't give us a contract. All of our other competitors, the other 3 of them, got contracts with this particular network operator. It was vital to us that we were able to supply all mobile phone networks. The retailers that bought top-ups from us wanted to deal with one software company that supplied all networks, and we didn't have one network operator. So we spoke to this network operator and we said, look, we think you've made a mistake, we're doing really well, the retailers are beginning to come on board, but we really need your supply, we really want your business. And they said, we're sorry, you came to tender, you made your bid, you didn't win the contract, we're not going back to tender, you're not going to get an opportunity to work with us. So a month later we'd ring and ask for a meeting to update them, and they decline. And a month later, we'd do the same thing, and they'd decline. And a couple of months later, they'd say, all right, pop up to the office and tell us what you've been up to, which we did. And we told them what we'd been up to, and they said, well, sorry, we're still not going to give you a contract. And all the while, it was becoming increasingly difficult for us to compete because we didn't have this vital line of supply. But we cracked on. Our revenue very, very slowly built, but we were hobbled. Every few months we'd update them by phone or occasionally up to their office. And then one day I was up in their office, in their reception. They brought us through to their meeting rooms. And this time, rather than the 1 or 2 guys we'd normally meet, there was maybe a dozen of them. And I thought, oh, I've really done something wrong now if the room is full of all of these besuited people. And they started the meeting, and the guy started, and he said, right, let's get straight into it. We want to talk about deliverables and service level agreements and enhancements, and he just started talking. And I said, can you please stop for a second and tell me what I'm here for? And he said, oh, we're going to give you a contract. And I said, I'm so sorry, could you speak up? Because I can't hear. And he said, we're going to give you a contract. And I said, thank you very much. And we got the contract. The next day, my biggest competitor, actually a little while later, my competitor rang me and he said, do you know what? We couldn't believe that you kept at it. If that was us and we had lost or failed to win that vital contract, we would have quit. The other big competitors, they have told us too that if they had failed to win one of those big contracts, they would have quit. Vodafone talked to us and they couldn't believe that you were still running at it. They said that they thought you should quit. All of my suppliers, all of my customers, and all of my competitors thought I would quit. And what's more, they all said that if it had been them, they would have quit. So all I did was I didn't quit. That's all I did. And I just dug my heels in. It took 18 months. And it was hard, and it was difficult. All those sales meetings we made where we didn't have what our customers wanted, we didn't have all of what our customers wanted, it was difficult. But we just stayed the course. Sometimes your best option is simply not to quit, especially when everybody else expects you to. So we had our contract now. Things are going really well. We're now beginning to really turn the corner, and our revenue is lifting higher and higher. Every month I can see that our revenue is growing, and it's growing in double digits every month, which is terrific. But as a technology company, we are continuing to invest in our technology, which remember is code for losing money. And my cash is running a little low again. But I'm managing it. Remember, I'm an accountant first, and I'm managing it, and I think things are under control. And I reckon we are probably about 3 to 4 months away from the first time making a profit and breaking even. So our monthly board meeting approaches. Me and my co-founders sit on our board alongside a few angel investors who have also invested in our business at this point. So I send out the board papers on a Wednesday for a Friday morning board meeting. And almost immediately, one of my investor non-executive directors rings me and he says, "Dale, I see that you've only got a few £1,000s in the bank account again. And I'm very, very concerned about how you are continuing to trade in these very uncertain times, and I'm not certain that you're going to ever get to profit, and I think that you might be trading insolvently." Now, if there are any lawyers in the room, you'll know what a threat that is. It is illegal to trade insolvently, and you can be struck off as a director. It has quite wide repercussions, and it shouldn't be bandied around lightly. But this is what he proposed to me, that we were trading insolvently. He said, "Dale, what you need to do is you need to show me on Friday that your creditors are all happy with you, and you've got, I don't know, £50,000 spare cash in the bank account to make sure that any other uncertainties are well paid for. Otherwise, I will put this company into insolvency, and then I will buy the company the next day from the practitioners for £1." So I got in my car, we're based in Berkshire. I drove into London, through the other side of London, to have a chat with a very nice gentleman who ran a chain of very small corner stores. And for a while, he'd been wanting to subcontract top-up airtime with me. And I had been resisting that model because basically it was another mouth to feed in my supply chain, another person to pay commission out to. And I worked in a low-margin business and was not really prepared to do that. But needs must. And I said to this charming gentleman, "I've had a change of heart. I would like to work with you on this basis, and we'll enter into a subcontract with you. But as a show of good faith, we would like £50,000 in cash up front, which you can earn out for your commissions over the next few months." He left the room, went out to the back, to his little office, returned with a checkbook and, bless him, a bottle of champagne. So not only did I get the 50,000, I could celebrate, which by that time I was very, very much in need of. Of course, I banked that check immediately. Come Friday morning, we had that board meeting. My investor showed up. He was normally dressed in chinos and a T-shirt, very relaxed kind of guy. This day he showed up in a pinstripe suit, looking very, very formal, a stack of legal papers ready to present at the board. I started the board meeting, started going down the agenda. He cut across me again, and he said, "Dale, there's really only one thing we need to talk about, please. How much cash do you have in the bank account?" I had the most enormous pleasure in pulling out that bank statement that showed that I had at least £50,000 and sliding it across the table to him. He went green. He didn't speak for the rest of the meeting at all, so I carried on with the rest of the agenda items. He left the meeting without saying a single word to me, and I never, ever spoke with him again. So we had our ups and our downs. There were some downs. But it is how you act in moments like this, when people don't treat you like you want to be treated, when they don't treat you fairly, when they treat you, quite frankly, very, very badly. It's in those moments that your success will be determined. It's in those moments that your success will be determined. So from there, as you know, things went quite well. That year we booked revenue of 12 million. The next year it was 88 million, and then 250, and then 450. So after all of that, the good times did follow. Was it painful, do you think? Yes. It was horrendously painful and hard and hurtful and stressful and wearying. But were the rewards worth it? Yes, they were. They were worth it. I operated in a very big market with reasonable margins, enough to be able to make a profit. And the market I worked in had a big problem that needed to be solved. So the rewards were worth it. Big markets, good economics, good business. Would I do it again? Would I go through all of this again, knowing what I do now? Well, I would, because I know now that I'm not going to fail. So the confidence that you get in going through all of these hurdles and all of these bad times means that when you next face them, you face them with confidence. Because quite frankly, what's going to happen to me now that I won't be able to deal with? So when, again, bad things happen to you, or things in business happen that you don't wish had happened, then just deal with it well, and then use that as your strength and as your mettle for the next battle that you go to face. So that's it, right? That's me. I build a business that does all right, gets to a ridiculous figure, but remember, low margins, so I didn't get to take that 450 million home for myself. And I sold that business, and I thought to myself, well, that's quite good, isn't it? I've done all right. But I started angel investing. Someone said to me just after I sold the business, he said, you've done really well building this business and, proving that you can do all of this. But sweetheart, would you please give me some children? We had been married for 7 years. He had waited a while. So I did give him 3 kids in 4 years. And he kept getting me pregnant. And while I was doing that, I started angel investing, and I started sitting on the boards of other companies, which was hugely gratifying. Some of that went well, and I ended up becoming the British Angel Investor of the Year in 2011. And on the back of that one award as an investor, I received a weird phone call one day from a gentleman at number 10 Downing Street. And he said to me, the Prime Minister is launching a tax incentive for angel investors, and we've heard that you've won this award. Would you please come along and do a quick talk for us? And I thought, I've never done a speech in my life. There's no way I'm talking with David Cameron at number 10 Downing Street. And he said, look, it won't be a big deal. There'll be a few lords and ministers and ladies and CEOs and chairmen, but you'll be fine. You can do it. So I thought, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I'm not going to trip up on the podium. So I did it. I felt very nervous. I didn't sleep the night before. I was very worried. I'd never been in Downing Street before. I'd never done anything like that. But what happened next was interesting, because in that audience were fascinating people. And immediately I got invited to speak at a conference up in Liverpool where I met Richard Branson, which was pretty amazing. And out of that came many, many other conferences. People just kept saying to me, can you come and talk? Can you come and meet with us? And I kept saying yes, even though I was terrified every time, because I thought that, 1, it was fun, and 2, I might learn something. So I kept saying that, doing that. And then I met amazing people like Luke Johnson, who is behind Strada and Pizza Express, a fantastic entrepreneur of ours in Britain. And now I serve on one of his boards. I met Peter Jones, the dragon, and now I serve on one of his boards. The BBC noticed me, and I appeared on 4 episodes of The Apprentice, You're Fired, which, if you ever get the chance to do the BBC, just say yes. Hair and makeup is amazing. So I got to do TV, which was a phenomenal experience. And then I got the CBE from the Queen, and then David Cameron rang back again and asked me to write a report on small business and Europe with a couple of FTSE 100 chairmen, which I did. And on the back of that, he then said, can I come to Brussels with him, please, and present it to a few friends of mine, which I did. And it was there that I met Angela Merkel and 7 other European prime ministers. And then I got a lovely call from Forward Ladies, where I was asked to come to Birmingham and address you guys. I would not have got to do any of those things if I had said no. There is a great power in saying yes, if it's within your gift to do so. I couldn't have planned to be on TV or be speaking to you today or pop off to Brussels with David Cameron. I couldn't even have planned that or imagined that. But sometimes you just have to get out there, feel uncomfortable, do things that scare you a bit and say yes, and you won't believe where it will take you. Because remember that I'm just a New Zealander. I was state school educated. I came here knowing one person in Britain, and that's all. But I made some choices along the way which worked out well. I worked really, really hard, and I kept putting myself forward. And it's only in that way that I've reached my potential. And I wish you all the best in reaching yours. Thank you.